Hello, everybody. Welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about how to pick a subject that is somewhat ordinary and turn it into a interesting painting. A little bit information about this reference photo. I took this uh, during my trip to Southern California, and I didn't think much of it at the time. I just took the photo. There's something about the photo that I took, and I think it's just maybe it's the lights and the fence. There's something about it, and so I decided to use that as a reference photo and just talk about my process and how I use this photo to turn as a starting point. This one is actually a close up shot of the fence and crop into different part of the composition, and so I just try it out to see which composition I like, and then I guess this process actually give me a good idea of what really works and what I ultimately decide to go. So this is the final composition I like, and it's the I there's something about the light as part of the fences in light, part of it's in the shadow, and then from there I just convert that into a black and white photo. I did this in Photoshop, so this way I could clearly see the three values that I talked about: the dark tone, mid tone, and light tone. And then from there, I actually go one more step. I blur out the image, so this way it eliminated a lot of the details. So it's kind of another way for me to see the values. And then one more step, I actually decided to turn this upside down. It helps to to get away from having to think about painting things. So this way, I'm just strictly looking at that and paint shapes and paint values and colors. So yeah, so hopefully this will give you a good idea of how I approach my painting. And let's start. So I will be painting for the block in upside down. So here I am mixing I used a little bit of the orange and then the mixing the light part of the fence. And I usually like to add a little bit of Chinese white. And just to even the white fence, I wanted to add a little bit of kind of a warmer glow. And if you look at the reference photo there, this is the part that was actually in the light, and it also has that warm glow, that the late afternoon light, where even with that, it has a kind of a that warm glow to that. So with the white fence, it's actually it's actually pretty obvious. So you can see that hint of a warm color of the light. And then here I'm mixing some yellow, and I believe that's an umber that also mixing for the foreground. And this is actually I'm mixing again. This is still the part of the light tone, and because this is actually quite close, you will see that I use a lot of saturated color. And again, with watercolor, because everything will dry a lot lighter, so this looks like it's very dark, but at the same when it dries, it's actually quite light. And I'm mixing some really saturated green. If you like I said, look at the reference photo, you'll see that it has a lot of warm, saturated green on the uh, uh, upper left corner. And this is the part where you can see that I painted the fence first, and because I didn't wait, and the yellow that I put down, it just right away it just bleeds into the fence, and I had to use a paper towel just to mop up some of those color. And I don't mind some of it going into the fence, but I think earlier was a little bit too much. So again, even within this yellow green, I really go the extra mile just to make sure there's some variations in there. There's some like a much cooler green and slightly darker. Again, I'm painting the kind of the light tone first, and so again, because it's a first the light tone, everything is white, so it looks like dark, but when it dries, it's gonna be a lot lighter once it dries. And I think with watercolor, if sometimes, especially in the beginning, I think it's the same with most of the painting. And in the beginning, it's kind of you just have to anticipate, like know where you are going, and then just trust, especially in the beginning. Try to find color that is easy to define. Try to find color that you can nail down easily without because that is these colors going to anchor. These are the colors gonna, and based on these color that I put down, and I will use these color. I will use these color and to judge the color how dark I'm gonna put. So, and the hard part is that everything is white. Everything that you put down right now, it's kind of difficult to judge, right? So it's a little bit more tricky in the beginning, but you have to trust that everything's going to work out. Down now, I'm going into the kind of a mid tone now. I'm beginning to put the blue. I think that is manganese blue that I mix, and this is one of the mid tone. It's the light mid tone. Again, I mean, you look at that, it looks like kind of dark, and but because everything is so light, it almost feels like it's dark. So by comparison to the white, but knowing that the white's gonna turn, it's gonna turn all dark by the time I'm done. So again, I'm adding some variations. I'm putting some green into that blue, so you can see within the blue there are some slight warmer change in the temperature. So now what I'm mixing right now is actually adding a little bit of the orange to kind of warm the blue a little bit more. And this is actually the shadow side of the fence. So if you look at that, you could see the first layer that I put down on the left. That is the area it's going to be lit by the sun. And what I'm painting right now is actually the shadow side of the fence. So again, if and because I'm painting this upside down, it helps me to just follow the just the value that I've decided on. So this is actually kind of the mid tone. It's the light mid-tone, and of course this is within that there is actually warm and cool. The as the I put as the I put down the color, it as it goes further to the right, it gets cooler and slightly darker. So you can see the difference in the values compared to the first layer of that fence that I put down. And like I said, because I paint this from upside down, it actually much easier for me to see the value and judge by the all the color that I put down. And so at this point, I'm actually mixing a puddle of color, but this is actually going to be the darker color that it's gonna. And once I put that color down, you'll be able to compare. Because right now, and you can see that the color too. There's not a lot of water. It's quite dark. It's quite dark and cool compared to the existing color that I had put down. And so you can see within that puddle of color, I added some sap green to kind of warm it up a little bit. So there's color variations in them. So you can see the blue and the greens now. So this will actually add a lot of color variations, and it'll make your painting a lot more of just the subtlety is going to make it a lot more interesting to look at. So now I think that's a sap green that I'm using, and I am mixing some of and this is going to be the area where the leaf or the bush that's in the light, and you can see that it's much. I mean the shadow. I'm sorry. It's much darker than that yellow green that I initially put down, because that is going to be the light side of the bush and or the hedge, and then you can see the difference between the light side and the shadow side. It's become a lot more obvious, and you'll see that all the color that used to be dark and starts to look, oh, it's not that dark anymore. So this is for that reason. It's always important to keep in mind that painting, it's all about relationships, and when you put down one color, it that color does not exist by itself. It has to work with the color next to it, and so this way, it's also very forgiving, because you can actually constantly make adjustment. Meaning, like, sometimes the color that you put down may not be like 100% right on, but it does not have to be. You could actually change other color to kind of compensate that. So now I'm painting mostly just the smaller shapes in the dark tone. So far I have my light tone, my mid tone down now. So I'm mixing. I'm getting the smaller dark shapes now. And so, and because it's the fence that I'm painting, so I have to be kind of careful, and I don't like to use these masking fluid. So, I rather just do that than use masking fluid to mask everything out and then paint over it. I always feel like painting these fences, or if you mask everything out, it feels like it's to control. And if I feel like just using these a freehand give me a lot more. It has that almost that the feeling of that spontaneity. It feels much more less control. Even though I have to be careful about putting down those shapes and this area too, like because there's a certain structure to these fence, so I just have to careful with that, and also at the same time maintain that speed. And yeah, so some people don't have a problem with it, and you just if you mask everything out, it's going to be a lot easier, and depending on the style too. And some people just like I said, it comes down to just personal preference. And for me, I just having I like to have that calligraphic feel, and the way I put down my brushes, and I won't have that same that I won't have if I mask everything out. So now I'm mixing a kind of some variations in the shadow side, and still like the warmer. There's even within that there's some warm and cool. Each color, each of the group of color, like the light group, I always like to vary the color a little bit. The mid-tone, I also want to vary that the play with the color temperature, and so now I'm adding the almost the final part of the composition, which is the shadow side of the fence. And again, it's still, in my opinion, it's considered like the dark tone. So, but it's actually a little bit more cooler because it's actually facing a lot of the sky. So you could see there's I use a lot of the cooler blue compared to that, and also the um, because it's in the shadow. I want to make sure that there is a difference in the values. So this is some of the choices that I made. Like I could have just wait for some of the shadow side dry a little bit. You can see some of the fence. I put down those strokes. It feels fuzzy, and that's okay. And now it's just adding some like darker, just the smaller details. And again, it's not super highly render, but just the small shapes and just indicating some of the smaller details. But I'm not at a point where I start to do any fine polishing right now. I'm still kind of at the block-in stage. And looking at the reference photo, you can see there is still some smaller shit. There's some shadows in there. Really, it's just finessing some of the smaller shapes. And once the smaller shapes are done, then and I would actually here switch the painting back to the right side up, so that way you can compare, and you could see again this way. And for those of you who have never done it before, I highly recommend you guys try that. If you paint upside down, it really helps you to not getting caught up in the details and just focus on the shapes. Focus on some of the rather than looking at the thing or painting like fences or trees or leaves, and you actually focus really on just the shapes. So now I'm break up the fence, tighten up some of the details, and this process, I believe I sped up this process about 300% because I think it's just way too long if I just play this in real time. And again, not super tight, but still continue adding details like the way I would do the block in, but less so with the big shape, because the big shapes has been established. Now it's just break up the bigger shape into smaller shapes and adding a little bit more textures or variations in them. or shifting colors, or these are the things that I think about, and I encourage everybody to just take a break every time when you're done with the blocking, instead of just like jump right into adding adding more details. Get up, walk around, and so that way you'll come back with a much better impression. So what I'm doing right now is just adding more detail, as if some of the leaves coming through the fence. And this is, if you look at the reference, you'll see that some of that in there, and I like that. And I'm gonna, again, this is another step that you could add, and to know where to add details, and not mindlessly adding more details everywhere. So this process can be lengthy. Like I said, I think it took me a few sessions just to I work on it, and I would step away from it, and so this way it will help you to maintain that spontaneity, and to me it's all about like finding a balance. Now I have I think this is I use this to kind of lift out some of the paint to these synthetic brush is actually quite useful, and because it's the darker shape, it's just wet this with a clean water and just kind of go back and forth, rub out, and then pick it up with a paper towel. And this is actually a good way to also use to soften edges. And sometimes it's much easier to use white and cover it. And in this case, I just decided to lift that. And then, of course, just go back in with darker colors or more details. Again, this polishing stage, it's actually very lengthy, and so the trick is to not divide this process into multiple sessions, so that you don't overwork something. And the key is to keep as much as of the original blocking as possible. And here I am adding some white. I think at some point, some of the lifting, I find it much more interesting if I just use white to bring out those leaves, and the brush can do much more interesting shapes than lift out. So again, I'm just adding some of the shadow that's casting by the leaves coming through the fence. Again, some of it it's just makeup, and I don't always follow exactly what the reference photo. And oftentimes, once the blocking stage is done, I don't actually follow as close as I mean, I just use that as color reference, and not really try to match that. So, excuse me. So at this point, it's just again different sessions, and then now I use a small to kind of even enhance the where the light, the bounce light where you hit the shadow, and then of course just continue to use add details to certain area to bring out the to I guess to suggest to my viewers what's in the back. And if you look at the reference photo, you will see that there's a lot more detail. There's the blue shape that I put down initially, it's a house. But then when you look at it, from my interpretation, it's not quite clear what that is, but it doesn't really matter. So that's why it's not that important to match your reference photo. At the same time, how do you like how much to put in there and what to leave out? And these are the questions that is actually very important, because if you do not have that sense of direction on where you want to go, and the whole idea I mentioned earlier was actually when I took the photo, I didn't think much of it, and when I chose this photo, I what I really wanted to do is just to like I want to show how the light hits these leaves coming over the fence, and then it's casting shadow. Part of the fence where it turns away from us is where the shadow side, and then you have the light side, and so it makes a very interesting composition. And I decided to crop in closer than the original photo. And at the same time, I don't want to show a whole lot because the house in the back is not that important to me. So I always try to keep a balance of just what to put in there, and what was my original intent, and what is it that caught my eyes. And so yeah, the process of deciding what to put in and what to leave out. So those are the things that, as a painter, we need to be clear. And the I guess if you're not sure, and oftentimes if you don't have a sense of direction, or it becomes something that you're just gonna try to match your reference photo. But in this case, I actually rely on mostly just kind of painting, and at this point, it's just really just bring out what I want to see, and push the colors, and not necessarily adding more details, but to bring out what is already there, bring out to push this further than hopefully than the reference photo. Again, having a clear idea where you want to go is important, because if you don't, then you will. I promise you, if you don't have a clear idea, chances are you are going to try to use the reference photo and try to copy that, or try to match that. So yeah, it's now the final touch is just adding white. I use mostly Chinese white, and just kind of bring out some of those colors, and adding more layerings. And again, it's just interpretation of that photo. And again, is it a close match? It's just a in my opinion, I feel like, oh, okay, this is kind of close to how I see it. And again, so it's not so straightforward. It's not about looking at the reference photo and match that. So that is not something that you want to do. And the whole idea is to look at something, and what is it that you're interested in, and try to pin down that what is it that you're trying to communicate with your audience. So okay, so I think this is it. Hopefully you learned something from this, and if you have any question, please feel free to leave a message, and feel free to share this and like, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.